So, I don't know if you guys know or not, but I've been producing a weekly album review series here on YouTube and TikTok. This series has been going on for about 10 weeks now, which means I've had 10 installments in the series so far. So I was thinking for every 10 episodes, I'm gonna rank every project I've reviewed. And plus, this will give me another excuse to gush about music I really like, and music I don't really like at all. So with a total of 17 projects reviewed so far, let's start our countdown with one of the worst albums to ever bless God's green earth. I've decided to give a review to the hit 2003 cover album by the man himself, Weston Chandler. This 8-track album is a deep dive into the mind of Christian himself as he details the many struggles he was enduring at the time, including but not limited to sex, autism, solitude, virginity, and his self-dubbed Monophobia, which are all surprisingly more connected than you may think. While this album is a cover album based off music from the Backstreet Boys to Ricky Martin, you can still hear the original tracks he is screaming over, thus making the listening process of every song the same thing as listening to 2 songs at the same time, in turn making Chris the very first mumble rapper. I'm just kidding, but also not, and with all that being said, this album is awful and you should never listen to it unless you are engulfed in the aurora of Christery as I am. I'm gonna be honest, I have nothing else to say but this.
This makes me really angry.
In honor of Pokemon's 25th anniversary, someone over at the Pokemon Company decided it would be a good idea to put together 2 collaborative EPs with artists such as Mabel, Sin, and the previously named Vince Staples. And yeah, it sure was, idea? Anyways, the genres of the 3 songs vary from pop to hip-hop, with every track making references to Pokemon one way or another. You may be wondering why I said 3 tracks whenever I'm talking about 2 EPs, but that's because the blue EP is just remixes of the red EP's songs. Overall, I guess you can say it was a very interesting way to celebrate Pokemon's 25th anniversary. These 2 EPs are being placed in the same position due to the simple fact that they are virtually the same exact project. Just one of them is an uninspired remix pack that just adds a little bit of Pokemon sound effects. If you guys listen to these projects, you can't be that surprised that they're this low, right? Bobby Tarantino 3 is the latest mixtape from the now unretired rapper Logic. This newest installment of the Bobby Tarantino series released on July 30th, 2021 after releasing a quarter of the project via singles the weeks prior to release. After listening to this project more than 5 times, the first words that come to mind is a phrase that I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. There were so many beautiful opportunities instrumental-wise, but then he wastes them by just simply speaking over a beat, as made most apparent by the intro track, Intro. Jesus, man, how bad is that title?
I'm pretty sure quote-unquote retiring just to pressure fans into buying your merch for an album fittingly titled No Pressure is not a troll,
but rather a cheap scheme for money, but I digress. This 12-track mixtape suffers from lyrical repetition, with an example of that being him addressing the haters in multiple of the tracks, and probably the most disappointing vocal deliveries we've seen from Logic in his whole career. The only positives I can see from this project are the final 4 tracks, as they feel like B-sides that could have been on No Pressure. But hey, at least the album cover's cool. And I hate the fact that diehard Logic fans just excuse this release because Logic just wanted to release the tape to get out of his label. And before anyone tries to write me off as a hater, I would like to show y'all something. Yeah, I'm one of you. Floating Rarities is the sister project of Robin's first major project, Subspace. As you can see from the title of this short, it says Subspace B-sides, which means that the majority of these tracks didn't make the cut or were reworked for the final tape. A good example of that being the track Subspace Interlude and how this was the original IKEA Norfair. The sound of this EP is all over the place, but that's not really a bad thing because that's usually what B-side projects consist of anyway. You can go from listening to Love, which fittingly has the subtitle of a bad love song, to listening to a hard-hitting boom bap beat on Digital Death Note. There's really a song for everyone, even me. Look, my name's in the title, but if I'm being honest,
I, Dayton, man, absolutely love this project.
During my original review, believe it or not, Robin's Ghost himself hijacked my video before I was able to say how I feel about his project. So finally, here are my genuine feelings about Floating Rarities.
I, Dayton, fucking love it so much.
Whatever, man, I'll just never speak my true feelings about this project. Anyways, this next part of the video should just be called Ranking Rav's B-Side Series, because that's essentially what I'm about to do. B-Sides and Rarities is a mixtape series by Rav where each project consists of random songs that he had found off his hard drives. Starting in 2012 after the release of Rav's first official project, the Hyperkinesis EP, and officially ending in 2019 with the release of his compilation album Vestiges, which is a project consisting of Rav's favorite tracks from the 7 B-Sides and Rarities projects. While all of these projects are placed under the genre of hip-hop, I would say that these projects have more diversity than they let on. You can go from listening to multiple songs over MF Doom beats to an eardrum-destroying song literally called Baby Blender Instrumental. But like I said in the Floating Rarities short, short, but that's not really a bad thing because that's usually what B-side projects consist of anyway. And if you're a fan of Rav and haven't listened to the B-sides projects, you might be pleasantly surprised to find some demo verses from Rav that were used on other projects like Beneath the Toxic.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I just wanted to say that Mondo is at the number 6 spot, back to your regularly scheduled program. Jungle, Ramona, and Drop Season. If I were to tell you which B-sides project to check out first, I would go with Volume 3, because I feel like that is his most diverse one yet. Since the B-side series is essentially just a load of songs from Rav's hard drives, the best way I felt to rank them was basing each ranking off of which tapes I've listened to the most and which ones had the songs I enjoyed the most. Releasing on June 5th, 2020, this short indie rock project consists of 4 songs: Fool for You, Manic Daydream, Lighter Than Air, and the title track, Monophobia. All these songs have different sounds while putting you into different atmospheres for each and every song. With that being said, they still all keep the overarching theme of yearning for love
and the fear of being alone,
as the title Monophobia implies. The range of instrumentation on this project can go from an upbeat piano ballad with angelic backing vocals to a distorted and horn-heavy outro that sounds like it could be ripped straight out of a movie trailer. Alfred manages to dive into his musical journey without coming across as a corny YouTuber turned musician, like someone we all know. KSI. While there are some flaws that become apparent upon a couple listens, that's perfectly alright and common for a first release from any artist. This is the EP that I reviewed on my first installment of This Is. Around this time last year, I wasn't in the greatest place mentally, and this project made me feel a little bit better. And I urge you guys to please give it a listen with an open mind because it definitely does have its flaws, but those are the flaws that attracted me to it in the first place. Persona. Ever heard of it? Of course you have. Whether it be from the toxic people on Twitter with Joker profile pics, or your genuine fascination for the franchise, you've at least heard of Persona once before. Something that the franchise is renowned for is the various OSTs that have come with every game. If you're a fan of the OSTs for any of the Persona games, you'll have a heyday listening to The Velvet Lounge by Sapphire. The Velvet Lounge is Sapphire's first album that is 9 tracks long, and each song consists of a cover of a classic Persona song, each with their own twist to it. Whether that be creating an English cover of an originally Japanese song, or taking a song like Beneath the Mask, which originally sounds like a coffee shop background track, and completely flipping it on its head to become an upbeat jazz anthem. And the tracks she chooses to cover do not fall under one sound. On the Velvet Lounge, you can go from listening to Rivers in the Desert, which is an electric guitar heavy track, to Your Affection, which is a somber love song. Sapphire manages to push her own sound onto these covers while still keeping the soul of the original song. It's been months since I've reviewed this project, but I still give it a listen at least multiple times a week. Anyways, with all that said, I still have never played a Persona game. Ouch is Matt Watson's first attempt at releasing a fully serious and cohesive project after his long journey at creating comedic songs with Super Mega, Syndigo, and the multiple Christmas albums under the Nathan persona. Releasing on September 4th, 2020, Matt let it be known on Twitter, Bandcamp, and YouTube that this project was fully produced and written by himself while in quarantine during the early times of the COVID-19 pandemic. This 6-track indie pop EP tells a beautiful story of emotions that we all go through at least once in our life. From the importance of self-care on Nokia to the underlying need for company and come over. To me, the best way to describe the overarching atmosphere of this EP is optimistic melancholy. I feel this way due to Matt's mostly monotone vocal delivery and the subject matter of most of the tracks. An example of this is in the song Margie, where Matt describes recognizing the positives you can get from a falling out with a close friend. Both the intro and outro to this EP are instrumental tracks that perfectly pull you in and walk you out of this story that Matt has portrayed to us. As I said in the original review, this was my introduction to Matt Watson, and I'm so happy it was. Being introduced to the sensitive side of Matt's work before the comedic side really made me feel a lot more attached to anything Matt and Ryan has released since I found Ouch. Going back and listening to every episode of the Super Mega Cast and hearing how much Matt has always wanted to create a fully serious body of work, and then seeing him follow through with his goal was, and still is, super inspiring to me. Because of this EP alone, Matt has grown to be one of my biggest inspirations to continue making videos, so that's pretty cool, I guess. I'm On To Me is Rav's first official album that released in November of 2020, and is 7 tracks long. This project spawned from the development of another unreleased project that Rav was in the middle of making. The short track length could be viewed as a detriment to the project before a first listen, but the minimal tracks just show the amount of care and detail that was clearly put into this project, especially with his use of features on 4 of the tracks. As Rav stated in his announcement tweet for this album, this is easily his most personal project yet. Every song is relatively simplistic, but all tackle big events and flaws that Rav experienced or sees in himself, which in turn creates a very relatable experience for the listener. With Rav being the executive producer for this project, he made sure that every instrumental fits the sound and all-around atmosphere of this record perfectly. The EXO-produced album I'm On To Me proves to be an audible rendition of what it feels like to go through the stages of grief, ultimately ending in acceptance in the form of the track To My Future Self. Personally, I adore this album. That's why it was in my top 5 albums of 2020 and why I own the limited edition red vinyl. I love it. This album was released on November 27th, 2020 and managed to get all the way to my top 5 albums of 2020 list. If that doesn't show you how much I love this album, I really don't know what can. I genuinely have no more commentary I can give on this album without sounding like a broken record. Anyways, yeah, that's how I ranked the 17 albums I've reviewed so far.
Since the recording of this video, Rav has released a new installment in the B-sides and Rarities series entitled B-Sides and Rarities Volume 9, 2017 through 2020.
Looks like I know what I'm reviewing next.
They say the good die young. I feel like I live forever, yo. Sanity hangs by a thread. Man, I'm better letting go. I don't notice your mistakes. See, I only resent my own. Worse at doing right by others. I best just be left alone.